So good morning, everybody. This is the World Freedom Alliance Education Pillar. This morning, we're going to be discussing the issue of trust. And Fatima in London said that this would be a good idea. So I'm going to hand over to her so she can kind of kick off our debate this morning. So Fatima, over to you.
Thank you, Nigel. Yeah, so I'm a teacher in London and also a mother of three. And this issue of trust has come up again in my mind over the course of the last year and more recently as well. Trust in the sense of what am I laying down as a foundation for my children to trust in, and also where does my trust lie? Because I find that I'm in a state of upheaval. And I think that this is a commonly felt emotion, and it's also something that has resulted in adults finding that they have had to reassess where they put their trust in. And if you are a parent, then again, where your trust lies may well impact where you encourage your children to put their faith and their trust in. So I think that this is a debate that we can have really, good discussion around, and just try to unpick it and see where the trust situation puts us. And it'll be interesting to hear everybody's perspectives.
Yeah, for me, I mean, trust and love go hand in hand. Trust and compassion and empathy, building a bond with consistency. When the heart's open, community flows much more coherently. And yeah, for me, that's so important. Trust is something that we trust our true nature, our inherent true nature. We emanate that, and children feel that and automatically align with their true nature as well. And it's the foundation. You're absolutely right, Fatima. It's the key and the foundation to holistic well-being all round. So health and education, it is the foundation to community and creativity. Yeah, that's my little take on it. Compassion and consistency. And when you're taking in a lot of information in education, you're taking it in, you become full, you kind of become devoid of your own gut instinct and your intuition, and you switch off. So that can happen a lot with children if we're just bombarding them with information rather than allowing people to be. So I find that a lot with my clients. I mean, my work in healing, it's if there's no trust, there's no healing happening. And as soon as people open enough to trust, they start to unravel. And this time is around unlearning everything we've ever known in order to connect back to our true nature, which is of trust, which is of love. And if we can nurture that within ourselves and help children nurture it within themselves. I mean, I have a lot of teenagers here, and it's phenomenal. They're so intuitive. How quickly they can unravel and remember their innate self. And yeah, there's much to, I won't say much to be done, but it's more around a state of being. If the calmer we can be, the better radiators we become to raise the consciousness of the environment and the planet, rather than to be absorbers of information. I mean, with all the information people are taking in right now, we need to be able to transform that information and not to get bogged down by it as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Coach. That's really
some of the words that Co said there, and I love my acronyms being, because acronyms help us remember things. Now, you mentioned compassion and empathy, Co, but we could say that if we want to help spread trust, then we live with heart. And heart, as you know, spells H-E-A-R-T. So if you live with heart, then you live with the H, which is honesty. You live with empathy for animals as well as humans. The A is you live with awareness, which is possibly the number one of the whole lot for me. Be aware of what people are doing, how they're feeling, be self-aware of how we are, how we're feeling. R stands for responsibility. Be responsible. Don't leave it to the government or the teacher or somebody else. Be responsible for our own actions and behaviour and language in life. And if things go wrong, it's okay, fix them. And the T is tell the truth. So if we live with hearts, that's honesty, empathy, awareness, responsibility, and truth. And as you said, Co, I think kids, sometimes they look like they're not listening, but they hear everything. They just sort of, there seems to be that, you know, are you listening to me? That they are, and they hear everything, and they know everything, and they see everything. So if the kids are going wrong, it suggests that the parents and the adults are going wrong. Whereas if we centre ourselves and we take responsibility for what we do and what we say, then kids will look at that and will copy it, I think.
Yeah, they're like sponges.
Yes. But the sponge, and then it sort of comes back. So it returns. And so, yeah, if they see negative people, they are likely to become negative. If they see positive people, then yes.
I think, I mean, one of the things I'm thinking while we're having a discussion is that what's happened in the world, particularly in the past year and a half, and I think for the few decades before that as well, is that, I mean, I personally have lost trust in the government. I've lost trust in authorities. I've lost trust in the education system, the health system. And it's as if my whole foundation has been pulled out from under my feet. And I'm kind of looking around for who can I trust? And if you can't trust your doctors, your teachers, your politicians, it's like, wow. This is a really big blow, I think. And I think this is why so many people, I mean, we often use the word woken up. This is why I think so many people haven't woken up, because if you do wake up and you open your eyes and you see we can't trust the doctors, the teachers, the politicians, the police, the Secret Service, we can't trust any of those people. They are not trustworthy people. We cannot put our faith in them to organize a society, organize a health system, organize an education system, but they do. And I mean, the big one that I've forgotten to mention is the media giants and the Facebook and the BBCs of this world, and we can't trust any of them. Absolutely incredible that we're sort of like, we're in this situation at the moment where in England now, or in the UK, I think 80% of adults have had this vaccination, which I do not trust. I'm sure a lot of you do not trust that vaccination. Isn't really a vaccination in the first place. But anyway, 80% of people have trusted in that. If the experts that I listen to are right, then a lot of those people are going to die because they've had this vaccination, because it has affected their body in such a profound way. And it's like, wow, what's going to happen in the next couple of years when people start dying, like in a proper pandemic? We haven't had a pandemic at all across the world. It's absolute nonsense. But if people really do start dying, then that is going to make people really lose trust. And I think they're going to be very frightened when they realize to what extent they've been lied to. I mean, I meet people now who have had 2 vaccinations, and then they're really proud that they've had their 2, but now they want us to have another one in September. Why do we need to have another one in September? Didn't the first 2 work? And they're beginning to lose trust. And I think we're going to have some very frightened people in the world, I think. I mean, I've found this frightening over the past few decades, just sort of realizing you can't trust all those various different people. And I think a lot of people, they haven't seen what I've seen for the past 20, 30 years. And it's all going to happen to them in sort of like 6 months, and bang, I think we're going to have some real issues in the world, I think.
Can I just thank you for putting into words what I've been sitting here thinking, how can I actually express this? Because that's what I'm feeling as well, just a sense of who can I trust? Because all the big institutions that I thought, I've only woken up in the last few months, sort of Christmas time, and I thought we could trust these people that you've mentioned, the doctors, the police, the BBC. I feel foolish now even for saying that, but that's what I thought. And it's the feeling for me is it's as though I've been with a partner for many, many years. And we've had our ups and downs, but I've suddenly found that for all those years, he was with somebody else as well, two-timing me all that time. And that's the feeling I've got, except on kind of even a bigger scale. I'm finding it's quite a debilitating feeling to suddenly feel this has, it's like everything's crumbled that I thought I could rely on.
So if we've lost trust, and if we or I or whoever, if we've lost trust in all these institutions, and maybe 20 years ago they were more trustworthy, but I agree with Nigel, I've watched it all happen for 30 years or so. But if we have lost trust in all these institutions, so what's our reaction to this? What do we do? Because we can just say, well, I've lost trust, I can't trust anybody and I can't trust them. But what do we do next? So this is really important. And I think that this is one of the positive things that will and should and can come out of this virus, is that, well, if we can't trust the police and we can't trust the government, we can't trust anybody because they keep crying wolf and there's never any wolf, but we keep going back to them and they keep saying wolf, what do we do next? And for me, and I put the question out, but for me, we have to learn to trust ourselves. I think this is the great homecoming, this virus, for the people that will look outside of the box. And to look outside of the box, you've got to go inside, I think. It's been often said that if you can't love yourself, how can you love other people? Well, I think that's the same with everything. So if we can't trust other institutions, do we trust ourselves? Probably not, because we're looking to them for all the answers and solutions. So since we now realise that they haven't got the answers and solutions, for me, we have to go inside to find those answers and solutions. And that means reflection with where we've got time and space to think for ourselves. And it means doing a bit of research and a bit of reading and so on. And accepting the idea that we could be wrong on so many levels because we trusted these institutions and we found out that they can't be trusted. So we may have lots of untrustworthy information. So I think that's our reaction to what Caroline and Nigel, what you've said there.
Can I come in from another angle? So I'm in Sweden, and we have just launched an initiative where we approach parents in their local environment. And now we have the problem to build trust in these parents. We want to activate these parents so they organize locally. So one idea is that we try to build this trust from the parents in us, that we, in a way, that we offer a balanced message. So we acknowledge the official narrative, but we contrast that with the actual data. But then we leave it up to the parent to make up their own minds. So this is a little bit our idea how to build this trust in this world where trust is waning.
It's a really interesting discussion, this idea of trust, because first of all, just to tie it to education just really briefly and then go broad again. I mean, we all know, as was said earlier, that no learning can happen until there is that environment of trust, right? It's that Maslow's, right? You need to have, that feeling of safety and security to even be able to access that ability to learn. And then to bring it back to, this broader discussion, who do we trust, right? like some of you, I've been, you know, my entire life, I've seen this game, and I was actually, and I finally am, it sounds horrible, but I was relieved when it started to all fall down, because it had to all fall down. There was no possible way forward as it was, no possible way. It was unsustainable completely. And even now, you know, I feel like I'm quite knowledgeable about the deeper side of everything, but even I am still learning more things every single day. I feel differently about things than I did even 4 or 5 months ago. And so I think one thing that maybe us, if we're going to take on this idea of, I don't want to say the word leader or whatever, like to throw all that in the garbage actually, but we still need to stay within ourselves. Like, we don't know anything, even us in this group, we don't know anything. And I think that that's a good place to start, is to say, okay, well, at least we know it's all an illusion, it was all whatever. And now we can really start to build it correctly from the foundation, and really find out, like, find out what is that foundation. Because I see it on, and I see it in the freedom movement too, especially in Canada. They're trying to build something on something broken. You know, we have to break it more. We have to break it down even more. We don't know that we're destroying the planet. We don't know exactly. We don't know if it is a planet. We don't know who's doing this to us. We don't have the answers to these really big questions. And we're not going to be able to build anything on top of this until we know exactly who we are, where we are, or what we are. We're not going to be able to really do anything until we get some of those answers. And we're close, but we're not there yet. And then you know, yeah. And people are ill. Like, I don't think the majority of the world, humanity is capable of accessing that kind of trust, that kind of self-love. For, you know, from now we understand it, for a very long time, they've been programming us in a very different direction. And even us that we're sort of aware of that, we're not through it enough yet to really be able to move forward. I don't think that's my perception.
So it's back to education again.
Exactly.
I agree with everything you've said, Melanie. It's back to education again. Mark Twain, not sure when he lived, was it the beginning of the 1800s? He said, "I never let my schooling interfere with my education." And that's 200 years ago. So this is nothing new. It's just that we weren't alive then, so we couldn't see it for ourselves. So it may well be that instead of us having an education system for decades, we didn't. We had an anti-education system, which is what I often call it. And so now, so how can we adults educate the kids if we're not educated properly? So there's a problem. It's like an intergenerational baton that we pass on of ignorance. As you've said, Melanie, I say we don't even know who we are. We don't know how life works, because if we did, we would not be poisoning our planet. And we're poisoning it in every single sphere you can think of. I can't get my head around it. So really, coming back to the solutions again, and trust is central to everything, but so is education. And education comes before trust, or maybe they feed into each other. We've got to learn somehow to self-educate, because nobody else can educate us. We've said, Nigel started off and said, we can't trust the institutions. So we've got to educate ourselves so that we can start to trust ourselves. And we've got to learn how to live properly. And I think the core problem is that we have been disconnected and separated, and we think it's like when we're born, the umbilical cord is cut, and that psychologically indicates that we're now on our own. But we're continuously umbilically connected to the universe and to our planet. We need its air, water, food, solidarity, community of fellow people. And we've disconnected ourselves from that. And we're looking to a needle to fix ourselves, not our immune system. It's all gone wrong. This is why I think trust is broken down, because nobody knows. Everybody's in the same boat, maybe.
Sandra, what's your take?
Well, I had so many ideas all throughout the discussions, but I'll just now, based on what Phil said, made me think that the thing is that nature and the universe has so many pathways, but the institutions made us only be aware of a few. And now that we realize that this is crumbling down, we feel that, oh, we have nowhere to go. How are we going to function? And this is why we have trust issues with the universe and with ourselves, is because we don't know, we're not aware that there are so many other pathways in which we can function, in which we can connect to each other and connect to ourselves. It's obvious that we have a trust problem in the world right now. Even if we lose trust in all the institutions and everything, if we have trust in ourselves, we can still move forward and we can still have a very good life and make the world a better place. The problem is that, as you all said, we don't have trust in ourselves, and it definitely it comes from education, where institution or authorities, we just admitted that the authorities are considered authorities just because it is this way. It's all based on assumptions. It's something that we talked about in one of the previous meetings, the notion of assumptions, that the education, conventional education, is based on assumptions, which means that whoever is giving information or educating has just the set of information of assumptions, basically handing it down to someone else without necessarily rethinking them or personalizing them or updating them or whatever it is. We just hand down things that become assumptions, and we cannot really trust that, which means that we cannot at this point know why we trusted the authorities in the first place. How did they become authorities to begin with, and why is what they're putting forth correct and accurate? It's because the way we were educated to begin with, we lacked the critical thinking, and we were made to feel wrong if we stepped a bit out of what is considered right. So we were never encouraged to question things and to look out and to step out, and then maybe to say, no, this authority is not valid, this information is not correct. So nowadays, in these current times, even if people are aware that they're losing trust in the institutions, authorities, governments, all of that, they don't feel empowered yet to start learning how to trust themselves, because they do not have they lack the method. They've never done it before. They've never allowed their critical thinking to they never followed hunches or tried to negate certain things. It has very much to do with your HEART acronym, Phil, because okay, let's go back to the basic authority that each one of us starts their life with, which is parents. Okay, parents start by telling their children what is okay, what is not okay, like really, to put it very simplistically. And children are supposed to trust. Soon enough, a kid starts wondering whether the parent's authority is indeed right, if they're smart enough, if they know enough. And when parents lack the honesty to tell their children that there are things maybe they don't know, or that it is perfectly normal for certain things to be uncertain about something, and we should be okay with that state, and it is our responsibility to actually be inquisitive enough to try and have answers that we feel make us reach that we feel, okay, that this question is settled, now I can trust and move forward, or meaning taking responsibility for filling in the gaps so that we earn this trust and we feel comfortable in it, and we can move forward. And if at one point something goes wrong, that we feel, okay, it's fine, we know how to ask the right questions, and we have to find where to find the answer. We have to figure that out and try to get to a new way of thinking, to a new system, to a new way of life, to be flexible enough not to be too afraid, and then, oh, if something is crumbling, where are we going from there? So education is definitely at the heart of the trust issue, where each individual is disempowered to try and step out of what we call a flock. But actually, I mean, when we know that there are so many pathways to the universe, it's we're never really alone if we know that we can connect differently to other people or other ideas, or we just have to be okay with that, with that fluid, I don't know how things work. Okay, now I got a bit too abstract at the end. Forgive me.
Thank you, Sandra. No, it makes sense. It makes complete sense what you're saying. I wanted to add something to, this concept of that you know, everything around you, if it's broken, where are you going to cling to? And this analogy that I have in my mind is that, whenever we are trusting, if we are trusting in institutions, okay, we're using it almost as this safety net, right? And we're looking outside of ourselves. We're deferring our faith and our authority in something else outside of us, and we're clinging on to it, and it is like a crutch. It's getting us through life, yeah? And by doing that, deferring that over to some other entity, we are disempowering ourselves. And the longer we hang on to something outside of ourselves, the longer we are not allowing the full blossoming of our own potential to arise and really awaken, right? Now, if we have hung on to this outside source for support for so long, and I'm talking maybe not so much about us here who have already given up that crutch, yeah, to some extent, but for the millions of others who are still hanging on for dear life, for them to let go of that and actually learn to trust in themselves and each other, because people have lost faith in the other, with all this distancing and being, seen as disease vectors. Like that basic human contact and human touch, one to the other, that has also been, well, they've tried to tear that down. So if we can forget about institutions and forget about, these sort of larger entities that are organizing powers, if you just look at basic human interaction, and you look at your neighbors, and you look at your friends and your community around you, and first the trust and the only way you're going to build that community is by learning to trust the other person next to you. And then you can build your grassroots communities right from scratch, right from the bare bones. If you can't trust in a higher organizing thing, then you have to start with grassroots organization. And that is what I see happening with things like the Freedom Network and all these different grassroots organizations that have sprung up all around the world, with World Freedom Alliance being definitely at the center of that. There is also this feeling that, okay, look, we as adults, if we are struggling with the trust issue, and we as educators also are grappling with, okay, we can't trust in the way the education system is structured, then what of the children? What role model are we giving our children? And this is where I really, really am questioning myself, that if I'm showing a distrust in this and a distrust or a mistrust in that, then what am I actually empowering my children to do? And believing in yourself, believing that your gut reaction, your intuition is on the right path, and really listening to that, and then reaching out to others of a similar mindset, and then forming something which is much more empowering than anything ever that you deferred authority to, because this is coming from within. Yeah, that is what I wish to role model for my children. I don't know whether it's going to happen sooner rather than later, but this is where I believe that the direction needs to be, that we empower our children by our own actions of empowering ourselves. Melanie?
Thank you. Just to add on to that, or to kind of tie it up, I think it goes with education. It goes with this whole entire mess. You know, they say, oh, this is a spiritual fight. I don't know if anyone's heard that. What does that mean? You know, the idea, I think the idea is that we have free will. That's supposedly the greatest gift that we've been given. But free will is also our greatest responsibility. And every single time that we abdicate our free will to an institution, to an outside, to an other, every single time we do that, we go against what is supposedly God's greatest gift, right? And I think that's the idea. They're trying to get everybody focused on the rules, because they don't want anybody thinking for themselves, to put that trust in themselves, to put that faith in themselves, to, you know, and that's where that spiritual fight comes in, I think. It doesn't matter what you like believe in spiritually, but the idea is to cancel that. No, don't think for yourself. Don't trust in yourself. Don't do that. Listen to us and follow the rules, and only think about the rules. And that's every institution, especially education. And it's been heartbreaking from day one, because it almost began with education. That's how they did it, and it's pervasive everywhere now. It's horrible. Yeah.
What an amazing discussion. We could go on for another 3 hours, and we will, because we will have other ones of these, but I think we probably need to stop now. Otherwise, people watching the video will see how long it is and not bother watching it. And I think there's some fantastic nuggets of just beautiful thinking in there. It was an amazing discussion, as they always are on a Friday morning. Before everyone goes, what I'd like to just say is that Martin mentioned the project with the parents in Sweden, and we're going to have a Zoom meeting on Wednesday, the 11th of August. Let me just check that date just to make sure it's the right one. Yeah, Wednesday, 11th of August at 7 o'clock British summer time, which is 8 o'clock Central European time. People are welcome to come along to that Zoom meeting. It will be advertised on the World Freedom Alliance main page, and yeah, it's going to be great. And we're going to teach parents, like Martin said, how they can support each other to make good decisions around their children. But that discussion was amazing. Now I'm going to try and stop the recording now and say goodbye to everybody.